We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And now on Liberty Nation Radio, we're fortunate to be joined by longtime host of Liberty Nation Radio and Liberty Nation's senior political correspondent, Mr. Tim Donner, who's here to launch into our special Signature Say What segment. Over to you, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And off we go with our first Say What of 2022. So we'll cover a fair amount of ground since the end of 21. And no doubt, front and center is the steep decline of the 46th president, now into his second year in the Oval Office and already on the precipice of irrelevance after all he's done to reverse the policies of Donald Trump, and the reaction of the American people whose approval has reached as low as a pitiable 33% in recent polls. But beyond the disasters he's created in Afghanistan and at the border and the urban crime wave, which continues, more COVID deaths than under Trump, and one defeat after another in court for his heavy-handed COVID-related mandates, it's his behavior that has people the most concerned. First, there was a speech that may well mark a turning point in his presidency. In Georgia, pushing for the lost cause of federalizing elections, essentially assuring permanent rule by his Democratic Party, this president who made unity the central theme of both his campaign and his inaugural, ripped apart those who disagree in a speech so divisive and incendiary it would likely have made Donald Trump blush. And the next day, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he could hardly believe what he heard.
Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis?
12 months ago, this president said disagreement must not lead to disunion. But yesterday he invoked the bloody disunion of the Civil War, to demonize Americans who disagree with him. He compared, listen to this, a bipartisan majority of senators to literal traitors. How profoundly unpresidential.
George Wallace and Bull Connor were infamous 20th century racists in the South, and Jefferson Davis was president of the Confederacy during the Civil War. Biden likely forgot, though, that all three of those men were, like him, members of the Democratic Party. Notice how Democrats run from their history while Republicans tend to embrace theirs. Meanwhile, Biden spent months trying and failing to reverse the 1 or 2 votes necessary for Democrats to open the floodgates and pass not just that voting rights monstrosity, but also a massive inflationary social welfare package granting massive new powers to the central state. The fly in the ointment has been Joe Manchin, the lone Democrat, along with Kristen Sinema, to hold the line against their party's recklessness. Manchin over and over has refused Biden's demand to overturn the long-standing filibuster that protects the minority party in the Senate. And one day in a hallway in the Capitol, the West Virginia senator put a final stop to it and explained why.
Anything he can say to change your mind on filibuster and procedure?
Filibuster is what we have, our rules. The filibuster is what makes the Senate hopefully work when it's supposed to work. We need some good rules changes, and we can do that together. But you change the rules with 2/3 of the people that are present. So it's Democrats and Republicans changing the rules to make the place work better. Getting rid of the filibuster does not make it work better.
And so that was that. Joe Manchin standing as a lone bulwark against a massive expansion of federal power. But what to make of Joe Biden's increasingly mean, incoherent, unhinged behavior and increasingly frequent fits of profanity, all of which widely respected Dr. Mark Siegel sees as entirely consistent with the classic symptoms of dementia.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident in changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time?
Mr. President, can I ask you a quick question on Israel before you drive away?
No, you can't.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a...
There have been erratic emotional outbursts. There have been lapses. There have been memory losses. There's also the issue of the surgical repairs of his brain aneurysms that he had in 1988. They opened the skull in 88, and there's a study that shows a 50% risk of long-term cognitive problems. Atrial fibrillation. He has an irregular heartbeat. Study out of Nature Cardiology in 2018 shows twice the risk of cognitive problems as a result. And one more thing, that wasn't a hot mic moment with Peter Doocy. He was talking into the mic 1 minute, and the next minute he's calling them SOB into the same mic. Why would he think the mic was off? It was on a second before. So all of this is eyebrow-raising and needs investigation.
This, of course, is deeply disturbing enough, but it gets worse if that's possible. Because Joe Biden has to know that as a Democrat, when you hear NBC's Chuck Todd, one of his chief supporters as a typically Trump-deranged member of big corporate media, say this about you. You are, as we wrote recently on LibertyNation.com, teetering on the brink of relevance.
He's lost his political identity that got him both the nomination and the presidency, right? What got him the nomination? He seemed electable. He seemed experienced. And he wasn't, he wasn't as far left as Bernie Sanders, but he was seen as somebody who was pragmatic, who would do what's possible, not what's impossible. And a year in, he's been focused on a lot of the impossible. What our poll shows, and I think what the reality they're facing is the guy that was successful in 2020 is the guy they need to get back in front of voters again in 2022 if they want to rescue the political side of this presidency.
Problem for Biden is that he won't have a deadly pandemic to exploit anymore, like when he was a candidate mercilessly blaming Trump for every COVID death. And the country is also now wise to the clever schemes of the Democrats employed to shoehorn this obviously enfeebled career politician into the Oval Office. And Mark, as we send it back to you, here's the question for all of us out there to ponder. To what extent will the weakness and failure of Joe Biden lead Americans to take a fresh look at the strong man, Donald Trump, in 2024?
And thank you, Tim. Yeah, I suspect that's going to be the ultimate question that will be consuming political pundits and just regular votes out there for the next 2 years, especially when we realize that 4 years of global stability under Trump, when, let's be fair, the supposed strongmen leaders of these non-friendly nations, they wouldn't say boo to a goose. Tim, thanks ever so much for your entertaining and enlightening segment. You're listening to Liberty Nation Radio, heard across the Radio America network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. And remember, you can tune in for Liberty Nation from 2 to 3 p.m. Sunday on KBKW 103.5 FM, 1450 AM, the talk of Grays Harbor. Coming down the line, we talk liberty with Scott Cosenza and discuss whether allowable racial discrimination in colleges has finally had its day. Up next, we talk economic spin from the White House. Don't touch that dial.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
We're doing it for real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for LibertyNation.com.
I think we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fight for freedom.
Daily tracking poll sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and others.
I can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.